So you laid your foundation. Now what? More here on Air Brands Live podcast.
It's On Air Brands Live at Home with Devin Bravaco, Eric Cabral, Josh Terry, Jordan Fraser, and Justin Fraser. Lisa Holbert, Sarah McMillan, Chris Orsi, Jack Turkel, and Jake Resnicki.
Welcome back to the On Air Brands Live podcast. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Tuning in. Yeah, thank you, Josh. Thank you. Thank you.
Somebody says thank you.
Yeah, where are you? You're not next to me.
I know. We're mixing it up here. We're
Yeah.
keeping everybody on their toes. So I presented a question to all the folks and listeners and watchers at home. You've laid your foundation. Now what? So I was quickly trying to describe the theme of the show before Josh ran off and disappeared into the sunset. And then he was back, thankfully. But I'm running around and I see our driveways being resealed. And we often talk about foundations, and we think of a foundation in relation to a house. So usually not a lot of maintenance. Usually you check the foundation when you're buying a house, and there's hopefully not anything or, substantially wrong with it. So when you lay that foundation, it's great. No maintenance, really. But the driveway, that type of foundation needs maintenance. Our business, your business, needs maintenance. So this is the theme that I'd like to kick the show off. And of course, we're going to go off on a billion different tangents. But if you think about the foundation of a driveway, yes, the concrete is there. They press it down, and then they lay layers of asphalt onto it. And this you're supposed to be doing each and every year. We're guilty. We don't do it every year. But you're supposed to maintain it every year. So in your business, how often are you looking back to your foundation, figuring out, how do I make this business better? How do I need to better serve my clients and my customers? And that is the layers that you're continuing to pay attention to. You're keeping layers / pivoting, whatever it is that you need to do in your business. So anyone want to share ideas around this? Josh, I see you with your biting your lip.
Yeah. Are you giving us the answers to these very valuable questions? You're posing all these questions. I'm like, yes, go. Let me. How do you? How do you? How do you build? How do you grow?
My notes so I can know what to do after the show.
Yeah, I only hope that I get some value out of these questions. I don't know. I'm going to bump it over. I'm just here to learn.
It's like the Hollywood Squares.
It is, exactly.
It's Charles Nelson Riley for the block.
Wow, we're going old school now.
I know.
I said Whoopi at least.
I'll go Jim J. Bullock for the win.
J. Bullock.
J.M. Bullock.
Who's the guy with the long pointer that Wink? Is it
God.
Wink Martindale or one of those guys?
Wow.
Too?
That one's for you, Cardwell Thaxton. I know you're watching.
It's not often you hear Wink Martindale on an episode of a show, so I guess we get 10 points for that.
Exactly.
Reference.
Absolutely. Just for the throwback.
I happen to love 70s and 80s game shows. The only one? Yeah, they were classic, right?
Fun fact about Josh Carey.
Why not? Joker's Wild. Let's go all the way
Oh,
back.
yes.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, this is a serious tangent. We are going way past what the heck
So
the theme is.
foundation.
Yes, let's go back to the foundation.
I'll bring us back.
Yes,
Go
please.
ahead.
Do you have
As you were
thoughts?
saying.
So one of the things that what I do is and then we're coming up to that time of year. I always look at kind of timing wise, like you have obviously the new year, right? So to me, you kind of take that time to look at everything, what's going on, what are your plans for the new year, kind of do a business plan to lay it out. And then I look at, it's like September, the summer's over. It's almost like back to school, back to work. And I always look at that as like a kind of a fresh start. It's like close to the end of the third quarter. You're getting towards the end of the year. The kids are going back to school. It's almost like, okay, now's the time to refocus one more time and see what the rest of the year will bring. So I like that. To me, it's, I'm not going back to school, but kind of a fresh start.
But you're always learning, so you're always in school, just in a different way.
True. Very true. So, the foundation is, is there anything I need to do towards, going into the last quarter of the year to kind of solidify that foundation as we're entering, the last push for the year, and until the time that I sit back in January and kind of reevaluate and say, okay, where is everything? What are the plans for the new year, and what are my goals? And what am I looking to do? So it's coming up on that time sooner than later. Although I think during COVID, it's almost like everyone had a chance to do that, because everyone had that chance to reevaluate their foundation, right? And some people said, I got to pivot, or some people said this foundation's going to crack. And so I think this has been a novel time to look at that foundation too. And, and now that people are kind of back into things, we did it, and, we did it with PodMax Global, and look where that's led us. So foundations are something that you absolutely have to pay attention to and align the time that you look at the foundation with where you are in your business. And I think the time of year.
And recognizing there's cracks. Sorry, Devin.
Yeah, it's okay.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I so agree with that. I feel like, I'm big on goals and goal setting and following throughout the year. And so I try to do like every 3 months or quarterly, or just try to figure out what makes the most sense, and then to reevaluate those goals. And yeah, like COVID happened. So obviously you have to change. Like, things happen throughout your goals and throughout the year. So you have to adjust to it to see, what in your foundation's a little cracky that needs a little bit fixing, and what you can kind of do to alter it and change it to still hit your goals or to get even bigger goals.
I think for me, it always defaults to story and messaging and who I am within the structure of the foundation that I've built, which is ever evolving. This is something we always teach. We're always big on helping you refine, discover, hone in on, and get out your message in the most powerful and significant and appropriate and relevant way for your audience. And one of the biggest points I like to make is that it is ever evolving. So it's not like, okay, I'm going to work on it for 3 to 6 months and then I'll bring it out. You really have to start getting it out as soon as an idea or thought comes to you, because it's truly ever evolving, your story, your message, because your life experiences. And I think that this is a good segue for our co-guest or co-host or guest or whoever is waiting in the green room, right?
Yeah. Before we bring our guest of honor here, I just wanted to highlight too, like you mentioned, Lisa, that even though I consider On Air Brands and PodMax in startup phase, because we're only 2-3 years in, it's still startup, still building from the ground, and we had to strip down the asphalt from the foundation and then rebuild and put new layers and seal the cracks and pay attention to, okay, what's causing the cracks? It's that tree over there. Maybe we need to move that tree. Maybe we need to remove it. There's roots growing under it. So maybe there's a way for us in which we accomplished it. And kudos to Devin and Lisa and Jake and everyone and Josh and the team just really figuring it out, like looking and identifying where those cracks were and whether we needed to strip everything back down and rebuild it. We didn't need to strip it back down. We had the foundation from the live PodMax events, and all we did was literally translate it and make it better virtually. So that was our pivot, and that was our new asphalt on the foundation that we had already built. So I don't know where you are, the listener viewer, in your business, but think about it that way. Think about if you need to strip it down and redo it, or go right back down, or move the driveway, who knows? But anyway, speaking of PodMax and how we pivoted to global, it gave us an opportunity to meet wonderful people that we normally would not have met. So yes, people flew in from all over the world to come to our events. Well, people are now able to tune in without having to travel. They can do it from the comfort of their own home. And Michelle, actually, we met through You want to speak about that 5-day challenge really quickly, Josh? And that's how we met her.
Sure. A handful of weeks ago, we came out with, really, as they say in the industry, a soft launch, right? We put it together. We didn't promote it far and wide, but we promoted it. And Michelle was one of the people that came through this 5-day challenge, which is there for you to help you really practice being interviewed. But it really goes deeper than that, because each day you're given a short video and a specific assignment that not only allows you to practice your interview and your speaking points and your message, but through some of the days, especially the first day, we have a really detailed, effective worksheet that we present to you and say, basically, if you're willing to dig deep to bring out the best, here are a lot of great questions to help you really target in on your message, your story, what you're about, why you're about it, what makes most sense, and then we help you put all that together. So Michelle was one of the people that came through it. It was an amazing experience for all. And then she was also the one awarded an all-access pass to attend PodMax Global this past week. So she went through that experience, and she's here safely on the other side to talk about it. But the one thing I love about Michelle, and we'll get into, is she has an extraordinarily powerful story. And yeah, we could touch upon the content of that story, but I also want to get into how you wrap up and discover and practice and communicate said story.
Love it. Love it. So without further ado, we've teased it enough. We're going to bring Michelle on to the stream here. Welcome to the show, Michelle Perry.
Hey, Michelle.
Here. Thank you so much for having me.
It's Michelle of Successful Diligence. So start us off, generally speaking. You're a coach through that brand?
Yeah, so I'm a recovering clinical social worker, and some of those skill sets I use in my empowerment coaching. And I've also got an online school and a podcast as well under Successful Diligence.
Wow.
Amazing. Did you ever think that when you went through the 5-day challenge, it would continue this way? Like you winning the PodMax entry, without any cost, and then going right into this? And then who knows what's happening next?
My
expectations
were blown out of the water. I actually went into the 5-day challenge really focused on learning and growing, and those questions really made you do the inner work about finding the answers. And I've done the work before, but this really made me go to another level deeper. Talking about your foundation, I had to rip off that top layer and really figure out, is this really still true and still relevant? And, I was so excited to win. And one thing I'm passionate about is paying attention to those opportunities that present themselves and going through the action taking, which is, I might be feeling all the emotions, but with courage, I'm just going to do it. And I'm so glad I did, because PodMax Global was amazing, incredible.
So you're talking about fear. Thank you for the feedback and testimony there, by the way. You're certainly talking about having the courage and acknowledging the fear. I want to talk about that for a minute, because there are two camps, right? Fear is consistent throughout our lives. It's never about removing the fear altogether. It's certainly a great indicator of what's around you. So we really need it for our survival. But once you're confronted with it, we have the two choices, right? You can cower in the corner like I did, in tears and in a ball for 4 decades, or you can learn to embrace it, acknowledge it, figure the right move out, and plow through it. Were you always able to do that, or did that take some learning as well?
That has been one of my life journeys, is to work through fear and not be paralyzed by it. To show up in spite of how you're feeling takes tremendous courage. And I've had to learn to celebrate that and express gratitude for myself. And it takes a lot of practice to develop that action-taking behavior, and you have to keep doing it. And then the fear sort of subsides. It's always there, but you can choose how to respond to it. So, and then you feel empowered, because you're like, yeah, I beat fear once again,
I love that you said it's a life journey too, because it's something that you're never gonna 100% overcome like one time and then you're done. It's a constant thing that you're gonna always have to work on. So it really is a life journey in many ways.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things, what's that?
I just said there's so many things that are life journeys.
Yes.
And that's what I was going to point to. One of the things that Matt Higgins talked about that really, I guess, really struck me was being vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And putting yourself out there and being vulnerable. I think when what you're saying to opportunities, right, and to share your story, and your story means something, and putting yourself out there and letting other people hear your story and your message, and kind of putting it together and putting it out there is part of, I think, overcoming that fear.
Absolutely. And, a lot of people shy away from telling the truth about themselves. A lot of us are self-deceptive, and I used to be extremely self-deceptive. I'm not a shy person, but I used to pretend I was shy because it made other people more comfortable.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And once I started telling the truth about myself, I had to accept that I'm more powerful than I thought I was, and that's okay, because I can use that superpower for good. And when you show up in truth, it gives other people permission to also show up in truth as well. And, who you are matters. Everybody brings something unique to the world. Nobody else can duplicate it. And so you almost have a responsibility to show up and be you and do you to the greatest potential that you have.
I just got goosebumps while you were talking. I love that. It's so true. It's so true in so many different ways. And I feel like too, once you talk about like things that you have been through and you kind of be vulnerable and talk to from your heart, you almost grow closer to certain people too, because one, people are like, they appreciate that your vulnerability and you explaining what you've gone through. And then you never know, maybe someone has gone through something similar too and they're not talking about it right now, and so you can kind of bond over that and help each other through it.
Also, the people that need to hear your voice, if you're not being your true self, they're confused.
Yes.
People need to hear the true you because they're looking for your voice and your story.
Or you're like kind of trying to dig too, because you're like, you're not telling everything right now. I know that there's more. Like get down there. And I feel like, Josh, you're really great at that. You're great at making people feel like very comfortable in telling their story and kind of getting to like the deeper part of it. And I feel like you bring a good mix to that.
What I love about the vulnerable, theme and people being vulnerable up front is you allow the listener and the person receiving, you give them permission to be vulnerable as well. Or at least you get them to think about sharing and becoming vulnerable, because not everyone will be comfortable right away and say, you know what, I'm just going to start sharing everything that makes me afraid and everything that, but at least it opens the door and it shows, hey, this is who I am. I'm not afraid to tell you, and I'm without saying it, I'm giving you permission to be vulnerable as well.
You used a phrase, Michelle, self-deceptive.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that? I'm curious how, relating to being vulnerable and fear, but that's interesting.
And the fact that people lie to ourselves.
Themselves.
Yeah. And I was a master at lying to myself and being self-deceptive. And I almost, you can tell yourself something so many times and for so long that you actually believe it, like you believe the lie. And the work to find the truth of who you are is messy and it's hard and challenging. So a lot of people don't engage in that. But there's an authentic core of who you are that is with you from when you're born until you die. And to tap into that is very freeing. But a lot of people they're fearful, they're scared, they're apprehensive about it. And so they'll tell themselves a narrative that isn't true. So I used to tell myself I was dumb and stupid and not worthy. And it was only 3 years after I graduated from Columbia University with a 3.75 that I accepted the truth that I am not stupid.
Wow.
So, yeah. So it can go, long term, and it's really a journey of self-discovery to eradicate that self-deception and those lies that we tell ourselves.
Can I ask a question to help our listener? Can you have you figured out where that originated? Why did you believe that you were dumb and stupid? Do we
Great
know?
question.
I think that, so I'm biracial and I was born in the 70s. And so I grew up in the 80s where being biracial was not common. It wasn't cool. There were no hair products. So I looked really different. And my father left when I was 3. So I went through a lot of like rejection, self-worth, self-esteem issues, all of those things of not feeling worthy, not feeling good enough. And the type of thinker and learner that I am is different than the typical elementary school, memorize this, repeat, regurgitate the information. And so I didn't get good grades. I never got an A until I got to college where critical thinking was embraced. And so I interpreted that as there's something wrong with me. I'm stupid. I can't get this. I can't remember these things. And so I told myself that. No one actually said it to me, but because of the evidence that I was looking for and was seeing, it reinforced that belief.
I think that there's so much, I'm getting the chills from that because so many of us can relate to growing up as a child, as a young adult, as an adult, feeling isolated because we just can't find a similarity in our normal world. I grew up the same way. I was like, why am I being treated so differently? I don't think I'm different, but if the evidence that I'm seeing and feeling out here is suggesting it, it must be true. So I know so many creatives, so many entrepreneurs, so many people grew up that way where you just feel totally removed. Nobody gets me. Nobody understands me. So I must be deficient.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good way to put it. So Michelle, you want to share so people have a little bit of context, what you do and how you help people?
Sure. I mean, I still work my full-time job as well, so we'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But through my business, it's really about empowering people to tell the truth and live a life that they want to get up for on a Monday morning. And the way that you create a life of design like that is a variety of different ways. And so my coaching is very individualized based on what the person is, kind of where they are in their journey and what they're needing. And then I've also got an online school with courses on mindset and gratitude and life transformation. And then the podcast is all about tips and strategies and tools that you can use to motivate, inspire, and actually implement changes in your life, one choice at a time, one day at a time.
Wow. You went through PodMax Global less than a week ago.
I did.
We've been talking about that. I'd love to hear not only your impression, but how would you describe it to somebody who isn't sure what it is?
It's unlike any other event that I've ever been to. And I've been to some events throughout my course of my career and my life. And I didn't know what to expect, except that it would be terrific just because I believe the hype of the marketing. And when I showed up, I didn't realize the quality of human beings that were participating. And, Matt Higgins was amazing talking about vulnerability and Jordan Harbinger about networking. So I learned so much, but also just in interacting and hearing other people's stories and meeting these amazing quality people, I learned so much because I'm still a newbie with this podcasting thing. So there's lots to learn, but I felt so empowered and welcomed and celebrated. And it was just an amazing experience and it was all day, but it like flew by.
Awesome.
I love that. Yeah. We always think like for the full day, we're always like, like looking at it like on paper, like it seems so long. And then after the event, we're like, we should do that longer. Like it's like, it's just like the conversations that are happening and the connections happening from the event are so amazing. So we want to like extend it, but then we're like, really, it's 9 to 5. Like it's.
Well, you need to process it afterwards because there were so many profound lessons that I learned on different levels and from different angles that I really had to take the next couple. I'm glad it was on a Friday because then I had the weekend to sort of process and, absorb everything. Because I really showed up as a sponge and I was like, this is so cool. So it was excitement and fear. And then it was like, wow, I'm doing this. And wow, listen to all of these lessons and just even some of the phrases people use. And then I was learning about podcasting because I mean, my goodness, the quality of podcasters, even just, Josh and Eric here, learning sort of the nuances of presenting your story and using your tone and your voice inflections and all of the things. It was just incredible on so many levels.
Had
Yeah,
you guested on any podcast before this?
So before the event, I had been on, I think, 4
Okay.
podcasts. And some of the interviews were pretty good, and other ones were a learning opportunity.
Okay. Do you feel more prepared now?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. And I've actually been on a couple interviews, and I've got 2 scheduled, and I feel so much more confident, so much more prepared. And I feel like I've got my arsenal, stocked, loaded, and ready. So I feel really, really good and empowered.
Was it helpful too for you to be paired with podcasts that would be beneficial to you versus you kind of trying to go out there and find them on your own?
Oh, I never would have been able to find them because I didn't know about them. So it was amazing to be paired, and the pairings were so perfect too. I mean, the people that interviewed me were just awesome, made me feel comfortable, but also were able to tune into aspects of my story that were different for their audiences. So each interview, they actually pulled out a different part of me and a different part of my story that was applicable to their audience. I mean, they were just masters and pros, and so I learned about that as well. But the pairing was amazing.
As you see on the screen, somebody wrote, "It was an amazing experience for sure." Our man, Andy Wong, said, "Great people." I want to touch upon that great people aspect. How does one accomplish that, right? How does one begin to surround themselves with great people, the right people for your goals, for your efforts? I believe it's us utilizing what we're talking about here, right? As Eric said at the top of the show, getting really clear on the foundation and what needs to be done and taking action on that, putting it all out, as Eric has said in a lot of the previous master classes, when we talk about discovering your message, honing in on it and communicating that message, you're sending out a beacon of light to the right people who want to hear it, who should hear it, and who are attracted to it. That's then step further in and say, wait a minute, what are you talking about? I want to listen. And now you have their attention. Now there's the opportunity for you guys to play together and collaborate.
And it's your tribe, right? It's the people that you surround yourself with. And I think I have to give a shout out to Eric for, you grew your tribe from scratch to now having been one of the featured guests on the Bigger Pockets business podcast.
Yeah.
And I think that, I think the story of not only just what you say on the podcast, but the story of getting to that point, that's the tribe that you built, being vulnerable, right? Being open, being willing to learn, all those things.
Yeah, there's no one magic pill or bullet that will get you there. It's daily routines and habits and rituals, and really, 100% transparency. That wasn't me when I first started. 3-4 years ago, I was someone else coming out of corporate America, and I had to transform in order to get the right people around me that wanted to be around me, like Josh is always talking about. You have to be what you desire. You have to become what you want. You have to attract what you want. Whatever Josh says, it better. But it's like it's really truly when I think of it all back. And thank you, Lisa, for pointing that out. That was a life goal when I became an entrepreneur, is getting on this show. That's they have tens and tens of thousands of people downloads per episode. I've noticed that even their videos get a lot of traction. So it's truly about, like you said, just the whole theme of everything seems like just being vulnerable and open and letting people know, because and that you have failures just like everyone else. Like, I know in the beginning when we first start out with our brands and our message, we're always like, we're pumping our chests and, I'm the best and look at me and be confident because I'm confident. Well, you're going to get to a point where you have to share the failures because you're going to experience them. But the thing is, sharing those failures comes with lessons learned. So that's the thing, that when you start to put it out there, failures create failures create people understanding that, hey, you're just like me. I relate to that person. So just really when Josh and I talk about this stuff, and I can't honestly wait. I'm looking forward to the next Podmax, which we haven't really announced here yet, but it is August 21st. But yeah, there's opportunities for us to do that 5-day challenge again, Michelle, and then other ways with our masterclass where I want to start sharing other things where people are starting to notice. I got a lot of feedback from that Bigger Pockets podcast, and some people are saying the cadence of your voice, there's something there is that teachable? Is there a way? And I said, I learned a lot of that from being around Josh Carey, to be honest. Like I really leveled up, and incorporated what he does with me and made it my own. But the thing is, there's something about using your voice as an instrument. And I've mentioned this before. I don't know whether it was through Masterclass or other programs, but when you think of your voice as an instrument, you have to think about how it sounds to the listener. How are they perceiving it as music? And you want them to stay, and you want them to hear the highs and lows and pitches in your voice and the pauses. Carrie's amazing at this. What do you think about that? Like there's ways, there's, you can't just do it without really any, real intention or plan behind it, but there's a way to do it so that it makes sense and that it's also engaging for the person. I was bringing up because Jim Rohn always pops into my mind about how his cadence changed over time. So go back and listen to Jim Rohn when he was not Jim Rohn, and he spoke normally. He was just talking blah, 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 blah. As he became more and more, famous. Listen to the way he talks. He's deliberate with the way he speaks and the cadence, because it keeps you at the edge of your seat. You're like, oh, what's he going to say next? What is he saying there? Oh, that was a weird pause. Why did he pause like that? So it keeps you there. It keeps you wanting more. So I think that's something, I don't know, Josh and I can start to figure out. Maybe there's a way that we can share why and how we do that.
I think you do through the storytelling piece. You really encourage people to learn how to tell a story. And when you're telling a story, even if you're reading a book to a kid, your voice goes up and down, you get quiet, you get loud, all of those things. So I think it comes in, at least for me, I was learning that through that storytelling piece as well as just watching Josh.
Yeah, you bring up really, really pertinent and important points, Eric. It is all teachable, and it doesn't just happen, but it can happen, as we say, with practice, with doing it over and over, with going back to the drawing board, with rehearsing it. My acting and film background, right? Helps. So I'm able to take everything that I've trained and still apply it to this medium right here, which is great. So I think that is something we will continue to focus on, because it is sort of like the next step. Once you have your story foundation, and you have your messaging, and you have your talking points, and you know how to come to the table with, so tell us about yourself, and you've nailed that and you feel comfortable. Now it's time to learn the art of communication. We say that it's step one, developing and being able to deliver that message and story appropriately. But now you have to learn how to communicate it. And that comes through being on the mic, practicing it, giving the chance to do it, and analyzing and studying it and studying others who do it right and figure out what they're doing right. Go back to your drawing board and repeat the whole thing.
Love it. We just showed a message there with Larry, big friend of the show. Can't wait to have him back on. But it's all about taking action. That's like the first or the second step. First you have to think it. Think about what you want to do, what you want to accomplish, what are your goals, and then it's not just about thinking about it, it's taking it into action. And then that's literally just pushing. The action is pushing that domino and then watching the momentum as it happens. So that's critical for everyone out there, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, even people out there who still, are in their jobs and they're not planning to leave. It's taking action. When you're sitting in a conference room, rather than, staring down at your notepad or your computer and you're typing notes, be engaged, look around and wait for that opportunity to jump in and say, you know what, I'll take that, or give me that responsibility. Like taking action wherever you are will create evolution, metamorphosis, change in your life, as long as you recognize the opportunities and pay attention when they're there, because they're there, folks. Everywhere you look, there's opportunities. It's just really being in tune to that frequency.
I think something else that you're good at, Eric, that I think like when you're starting a business too, that's important is to make sure you surround yourself by the different experts. So kind of going back to laying the foundation. And so we were talking about a driveway, like you're not going to bring in a painter to seal your driveway. You're not going to bring in, a mechanic it doesn't make sense. You have to bring in the expert of that field to kind of run that part. And like, you're never, I mean, you can if you want to go to mechanic school or do whatever you can, but you're never like that's not going to be you. So let the expert kind of do that and partner up with them so that you guys can go both, learn from each other and grow the business together, but that you kind of stay in your roles or your lanes essentially. And then you're both expanding and it kind of gets you some time back and vice versa. And so I think something like with growing a business, that's something like you are good at and you realize who you need to kind of continue to take the business to the next level, and to bring those people on and to make sure it's constantly leveling up.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I want to point out, thanks, Devin, because, I love you for your skill sets and your superpower. And that's why you're with us, each and every day. But the thing is, I think that really, if we go down to the root of it, it's self-awareness. It's what am I great at and what am I not so great at and what am I terrible at? What do I know? Or what am I okay at, but I don't like to do it? So that's what it's about. If people lack self-awareness and you walk around all day long and there's people who have no idea or any clue who they are, or they just stuff it into the back. And I'm like, I'm not going to deal with that ever. So it's all about doing the exercises, doing the work to figure out who you are, and then starting to, like you said, Devin, find the specialists, the people, their superpowers, and plugging them in and making sure that we can build something together. If you're great at that and I'm great at this, let's come together.
You know what the trap is there? Like Devin said, you're not going to hire the painter to seal your driveway, but the trap is talking to the painter and they say, you know what? I could seal that driveway, $20. Really?
Yeah.
You can do it for $20? Because I was quoted $350. $350. They're out of their mind. Let me do it. $20. Okay.
And what's the result going to be? You get what you pay for, right?
That is very true.
And then also by doing it yourself too, being like, you know what, I could YouTube this and figure out how to do it on my own.
DIY.
One is taking how much of your time? Let's be real. It's going to cost you more than $20 when you get down to it. And your time is worth more than that. So it's more like getting out of that mindset of like doing yourself and bringing in the experts to kind of help and be alongside you.
Yeah, I love that.
I'd like to give a shout out to somebody who I thought has taken action and has been on our show recently, Edwidge Paul. That's the first thing that popped into my mind when you said taking action. Yes. I mean, he has been on this journey with us, almost from the beginning. And he is now signed up to come to our next event.
That is amazing.
And I think that is amazing. And you know what? We're going to be able to prepare him and he's going to do a phenomenal job. Now, he has the confidence in knowing he does have a story to tell.
Yes,
he has a great story. And I think what's cool too is I love like the environment that we've created and the network like at On Air Brands and with PodMax and everything. And even, after having him on the show, me being newer to the company with you guys, connecting with him over real estate and still having that, like making a relationship with him and talking with him on an ongoing time. And, we both have introduced each other to different people that would help him in his business and my business. And it's a really cool environment that's been created through what we're doing right now. And to be able to open it up and to expand it into your business as well. It's been awesome. So I'm excited for him.
You guys do a great job about building community. And I'm just interested, did you set out to build community when you started the brand? Or is that something that's sort of just been evolving?
Both, no. Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, originally On Air Brands started out as a traditional creative agency. Because that was my mindset. This is all I knew was let's create something that I came from, rebuild it. But then as I started to surround myself with real estate investors and saw that they all had this unique quality to them, which is having an abundance mindset and, one hand reaching down, and also reaching up was just mind blowing to me. So that just being around those folks created a community, and it was deliberate, but then also it was relatively new, and Josh was building his community as well, through the podcasting and entrepreneur space. And then when we were able to fuse the two communities together, it just exploded. So I think it's both yes and no. It was deliberate, but at the same time, it happened organically.
There's
So it's
also
really your zone of genius. It's your differentiator. For me, at least, like I don't know of any other brand that has the level of community feeling of embracing and welcoming that you all have. I just haven't experienced it before.
Thank you for acknowledging that.
Nice.
Looking back on my past, with a sense of awareness, I realized that a sense of community has always been a desire of mine, maybe because I felt isolated much of my life. So I'm like, come and join me. Who wants to come on in? Now I'm able to express that and send out that beacon of light and have the right people say, I like what you're doing. I want to be part of it. But I also love and adore a different side of the same coin, collaboration, right? Which is what community should often lead to. I love collaboration. Like this very moment. This is a collaboration not only between the five of us, but of everybody watching, right? Because they're part of the story. They're part of the comments. So this becomes a whole creation that will live for eternity, that we all collectively created and collaborated on. So I love all of that. And that's what we bring to the table in part.
But I think
I love
now
that.
people are beginning to realize, Michelle, also to expand on your question, is community is critical when it comes to building a brand, building a company nowadays, because social media really and other tools have provided the opportunity for us to continue the conversation outside of physically meeting at networking events. I guess it started out with IRC chats and then blogs and then websites where people started to build a community online. But then now, I mean, there's so many different ways to continue the conversation, and we're really just leveraging that and recognizing that this is really the DNA, the lifeblood of the company, is building and fostering this community.
You got to put Larry Roberts' quote on
I mean,
every
I
one of
that
the
little
laughed out loud as I
baby.
saw it come in. That's amazing.
Right. But don't
Shout out to Vanilla Ice.
or who's the original sample that he denies?
Oh, David
Isn't it-
Bowie.
Yeah, he's like, no. His song is dun 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 dun.
dun.
Ours
Mine
is
goes dun 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 dun.
dun 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 dun. Right, it's crazy. Oh, Vanilla. Maybe Vanilla.
One
Rip
hit
Van
wonder,
Winkle. What's his real
Vanilla
name?
Ice.
Whatever.
Oh. Yeah.
But, yeah.
A really quick thing about Edwich saying he's looking forward to the next PodMax Global. I think somebody else here said that they need to make time to sign up for the next one. Can't wait. Well, now is the time because in a few days, the price is going to increase. We've been talking about this. So if you get in now, podmax.co has all the information, has the ticket levels with the current pricing that we offered for the most recent global. You can lock that in, and we are going to be throwing as much more value into the different levels as possible. Especially that top level, but the price is going to go up. We're not sure to what or when, certainly within a few days or, around that. So if you lock it in now, you're in. So consider podmax.co right now.
We have a ton planned. We're really jam packing the bag, each and every level, with way more stuff, Michelle, than you experienced. There's just tons and tons and tons that we just keep packing in. But what's cool about this is I threw up this. So unfortunately, our boy Wonderful is not here. He's literally jumping out of a plane today. So big shout out to Jake. So I'm running the things behind the scenes. I'm here chatting, but I'm also working behind to add all these banners and people's comments. But what's funny, Josh, is Jordan Harbinger's name is still here from the last message. But what's great because we did. So he's back. He's coming back.
We could announce it.
Yeah.
He was a standout. I mean, there were so many, right? Of like Michelle said, there are just so many things that you have to process. Jordan is phenomenal. He's spectacular. If you know him, a top-rated show host in his own right, 6+ million downloads a month of the Jordan Harbinger Show. He's one of the original creators of the Art of Charm business and podcast. So much extraordinary stuff. We, after that workshop, aired, and we had Eric and I had a few minutes alone after that, we both looked at each other and we're like, "Bring Jordan back for August," and we're like, "Yeah." We knew we have to.
I'm like, text him right now.
No brainer.
Yeah. And we asked him, and he said an easy yes, easily sure. So, well, great, thank you. That means we're doing something right, and it's just a magnificent win for everybody.
I want to make sure we hear the second kidnapping story.
I know.
Yeah, he was kidnapped twice on two different unrelated occasions in two totally different countries.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
When he was telling the story about how he was kidnapped the first time, I thought it was going to go right into the second kidnap when he was asking for help. For anyone who missed it, it's available for you if you came through Podmax. We have it all on tape.
Yeah.
But when he was like, and then I ran for help and I ran to the street. I said, help me. I thought someone was like, get in the trunk. And then, like he was taken away again. But yeah, I mean, that's crazy. That's just amazing. His stories are great. I love talk about cadence and delivery, like the way he tells his stories.
He's funny.
Oh my
He
goodness.
is. He's so
So good.
captivating. Like I feel like I was just like sitting as close as I possibly could, trying to listen and take in every word and like jot down notes because I'm like everything he was saying was so important.
I want to talk about, for him, I think that's the direction we're going to go in. I love that you said that, Devin. He's so captivating because that's all, whether we're a show host, whether we're a podcast guest or not, right? In our business, we want that. If we do Facebook Lives, if we do videos, if we're on stage, if we're at events, we want to be captivating. So I think we're getting to what the topic might entail: how to be a great guest, how to communicate effectively, how to be captivating, how to practice it, how to cultivate it, how to become it, right?
Yeah, this is good. If you're watching and you've come through Podmax and you were there for Jordan Harbinger, please send us feedback on like maybe what you'd want to hear, any questions that you would have for Jordan, because we're gonna have an opportunity to chat with him again live on August 21st. So yes, send us any questions, any comments. You're always looking to make things better. Devin sent out surveys, which we appreciate. Actually, if you've received an email that says please fill out this survey and you haven't yet, please do it, because it's really just making our event way better, and we're always trying to level up. So appreciate you for taking the time to do it. It only takes a few minutes, really. So did we send out a second time? If not, we'll send it out again as a reminder. But yeah, thank you for participating in our survey.
Yeah. And you could put your info in there. You can leave it anonymous, however makes you feel comfortable. But the more feedback, the better. The good, the bad, any kind of improvements. We want it all. So yes.
Yeah, love it. Love it. So this is I'm looking for more comments here. You guys have anything else you want to add as far as Podmax or?
Yeah, I want to tie
experience?
something into Michelle's story, because we've alluded, and again, we don't have to get into the specifics of her story. Sooner than later, you'll be able to tune in and hear her on a show on a handful of podcasts that I'm sure detail it. But Michelle, I want to get your thought on you have such a clear story, a great message. You deliver it well, you communicate it well. When the premise and the basis for your story happened, did you quite quickly feel, okay, I gotta come publicly, I'm tying it all together? Or did you think about it, or did it hit you later on that, oh, okay, now I see how it ties in? How did it all come to be?
So first of all, thank you for the kind words. I think I understand your question. I've really only been telling this specific story since last year. It's been the driving force of who I am as a person, why I chose to do the different careers that I've gone into, and what really the focus of my life is. And I don't know that I had the language of how to tell the story and communicate it until I did more of that deep work that you all help us with in that 5-day challenge. And I've been doing that over the years and then just sort of solidifying it. But I joined another challenge about how to become a speaker on stages and that kind of thing. And I had to develop a 3-minute sort of intro, and I didn't know what to talk about. And so I had to think about, well, what is my life? Why do I do what I do? And ask those hard, deep questions. And that story kept coming up because that is the foundation of everything of my life. And so I've only really been telling the story for the last 1.5 to 2 years.
Wow. And it is a powerful story. It's funny because we keep talking about it here, and I'm tempted
hook.
for you to tell it. But I also want people to join into your podcast episodes that were recorded at PodMax to hear the story. I'm curious though, were you able to tweak and modify it at all? Because we gave you a little bit of feedback during that time. Were you able to do it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I tell it so much better now.
Okay.
Because of the feedback that I got and because of the 5-day challenge that you all put on.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I don't know, I think one interview that happened at PodMax Global, I don't even think I told the story at all because she went in a whole different direction.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's
so-
do it. Give us the story. Come on.
I know you got to do it.
Let's do it.
You got to do it.
Okay, trigger warning. It can be triggering for some people,
Yes.
but I won't make it as raw as
I
other
love that.
times I do it. But January 2nd, 1992 was the day that literally changed my life. And I was 17 years old. It was the day back to high school, second period English class after, the New Year holiday. And we were talking about really important things, new hair products that came out. And I remember looking into the corner of the room in the back, the last seat, and there was a boy who was sitting there. And he was someone I knew. I'd seen him throughout my entire educational career, but he was like that weird kid that nobody paid attention to, nobody really liked or disliked. He was just that weird guy. And I noticed that he had a white styrofoam cup with a pencil on his desk, and he was stirring it that morning with a smile on his face. And I remember thinking, I've never seen him smile. Like, I've just never seen it. It was really weird. And then I went back to my important conversation about hair products and, all of the things. And the next 5 minutes went by and we started to hear this really strange sound coming from the corner. So everybody looked, and this boy had begun to convulse and make all these sounds. And so they rushed us out of the room. He had drunk what was inside of that white styrofoam cup. And I was the last person out of the room. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, he's having a seizure and freaking out. And I remember looking back as I left the room, and he was on the floor and there was no life left in his body. And I remember thinking that was, number one, not a seizure. And there was a point inside of me, there was this part of me that knew that this was life-changing, but I didn't have sort of the awareness or consciousness about what was really happening. And when we got outside the classroom, everybody's crying and freaking out, and they brought the counselors in, and they named a tree after him, and they named a gym after him. I remember my reaction was so deeply rageful, not even angry, but just filled with rage. And I couldn't figure out why. And as I processed it through college, I realized that I was so angry at us who were paying attention to this boy after he was gone, where if we had taken one moment, one day, one action to pay attention to him when he was alive, he may not have made that choice. Now, he may still have done it, but at least we would have done something to help prevent that. And so that was really what propelled me into a life of service and focusing on paying attention to other people and also to myself as well, because, transitioning out of corporate, I had burned out. And so I had to learn how to pay attention to myself as well. But that incident really was life altering.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sit here and cry. So just continue.
Powerful.
Okay. Yeah.
Now you see why she made it through the challenge. Her message to me and to Josh was unanimous. Like, it's so powerful and polarizing, we found, because it wasn't polarizing for me. I mean, I've dealt with tons of friends, that have committed suicide, and it's an important topic. Often when I do charity work, that is, the crux of it and the foundation, because it's something that people don't talk about. We don't ever bring it up because it's tough. And the thing is, I loved the way you teed it up early. When we first heard it, your theme up front and you bookend it was pay attention. And it's not the way you think, right? People just think, oh, pay attention to the opportunities, pay attention to this. But no, you were like, pay attention here. Yes, opportunity, but then pay attention, to what everything, involved in your story. So yeah, really, I mean, powerful stuff. What was the reaction you got from your hosts?
Good question.
It's interesting. There was one host, not from PodMax Global, that was sort of, like, ooh, audience, or if you're triggered, it was almost like too much. So I caught him off guard, which is why I put that disclaimer now. Like, this can be triggering. But it was received really well during PodMax Global, and the hosts were they got it. Like you, Eric, they understood sort of what the message underneath the story is, because it's an inflammatory story, but we have to talk about it. It's messy, it's challenging, it's hard, but that's what life is. I mean, that humans are messy and challenging, and we have to talk about it. Otherwise, it's not like it doesn't exist. If you don't talk about it, it's still there. So it was received really well.
It's so true. And I give you a lot of credit, and I appreciate you talking about that, because it is a topic that a lot of people don't talk about. My cousin took his life, and today's actually his 40th birthday, if he were here.
Oh, wow.
So I know that story very well. And it's a hard thing. And I feel like mental health in general, like, it's so sad, because now that they're not with us, like, you have so many questions that if you were just to like ask, and maybe could have lent a hand. And so now, to your point, I mean, I try my hardest if someone looks like they're having a hard day, to ask them what's going on, and, and try to talk about it.
I make eye contact with everybody. I smile at everybody. Anyone who comes in contact with me is going to be encouraged. They're going to get my positive energy, because it's a mission, because I don't want anyone to ever feel that much despair that they would want to take that drastic of a choice. So if you come in contact with me, you're going to be encouraged. You're going to smile. I'll make you laugh. Whatever.
It's so true.
I appreciate that. And to know that there's always help out there too. There's always someone that you could talk to, whether you think it or not. And I know, like, mental health is very real. And the struggles that people go through is really real. And as much as like someone else can't see it, what you're internalizing is it's a difficult struggle. But we need more people to be able to talk about it, and to talk that this is real, this happens, this is life. And it's not, sometimes like they feel like there's not a choice. So I appreciate you saying that.
It's really also, I mean, this is such a deep topic, and could be continued into another conversation in another show. But we're coming to the end. We're, like I say, landing this bird. But how can we help in terms of that sort of issue that we have? And it's rampant, it's always going on, people don't realize, and now even more with COVID happening, the results and the side effects of this is depression, and going down dark roads and dark paths, can lead to drastic measures like that. So how can we help is like Michelle said, let's pay attention, smile. Unfortunately, you can't see with these silly masks, but, smile when you're at the counter. Recognize that someone looks like they're not having a good day, and maybe try to make a change, even if it's incremental, by making the change within yourself and walking around with a positive and happy attitude. May seem like it's a small thing, but you may prevent something. You may actually change someone's mind if you actually reach out and say, hey, I'm paying attention to you. I notice you. How are you? It's something as simple as that can really, really make a drastic change in someone else's life. I know that it's happened when I've walked, and I engage people all the time. You guys know me. I'm very chatty, and I love to talk to people. So, I've seen people, their eyes light up. When you pay attention to them and you say, hey, I see you and I recognize you, and, what are you, and start asking questions to show that you give a crap, that can really make a change in people's lives. So that's, if anything, I hope that's something that you can take away from this show. And I know that we've kind of, I knew that was the risk, but I knew that you knew your story, and I think it's a positive one that needs to go out there. But yeah, anything else anyone wants to add, because, we're going to end this thing as we're coming to a close.
Well, I think you asked the question, Michelle, about, was building this community kind of on purpose. And I think to that point is part of what we've done is created this community of, we're friends, we're colleagues, we're business partners. We can, support each other, and it gives, now it's expanded to anybody who's participated in PodMax. And now there is a community. And I think in this community is so important. To that boy, a community would have been so important. People that are willing to listen, to give advice, to give feedback, or just to say, hey, or share a meme or a funny joke or whatever. Community, to me, is the key.
Yeah. Community. Yeah. And embracing difference, embracing things that aren't exactly like you.
Right.
You know, I think that is critical in a community is everybody is welcome, and then it prevents things like that from happening. So,
And it's
with
also,
you-
I mean, good. Mental health is like it is a disease too. It's not that it's
Absolutely.
something that they wanted to happen. It's not something, I mean, I struggle from depression and anxiety. You know, I've been through a lot of different things. I talk a lot about sexual abuse, and a lot of these things that happen to you, you sometimes don't have control over certain things, and how it affects you versus somebody else is completely different. And so, my message out for anyone struggling with mental health is that there's people out there to help you. I mean, it's amazing. They're creating a suicide hotline now. Instead of calling like 911, there's like going to be a suicide hotline. And it's, I think it's so important in so many different ways. And I think what we're doing and being able to speak about this and, going back to vulnerability and building like the foundation of like showing who you are and building like the vulnerability and the space around you to be able to be welcoming enough for somebody to ask for help when they need it, is very important. And maybe, my hope is like by sharing stories, the people come and reach out to us to say, "Hey, I'm struggling with this. Can you help, or can you get me where I need to be?" So
that was something I wanted to say about you guys is that your community is so non-judgmental, and it encourages the authenticity, and you embrace people for who they are, what they are, and you let them know that you matter. You matter, your story matters, and we're going to help you and partner with you on the journey to get wherever you want to go. That is so special and so unique, and I am so grateful that I am now part of the community because it makes such a difference.
powerful stuff. Thank you so much, Michelle, for being here, being part of the tribe and the Podmax family. We really do appreciate you.
Podmax.co right now.
Podmax.co. As we start to close the end of the show, that eventually will start to close as well, but we'll let you know. But yeah, grab another seat as people are coming back. Hopefully we'll see you again, Michelle, and and we'll see you too. We'll see Edwidge especially.
Yes, at which.
Thanks, guys. Hopefully we added some value in your life today. See you next week.